Kaweris, Samkelikile, welcome and welcome. For me, this is a really special moment because I want to recognize the fact that we are a faculty that and anybody who's that old, anything that is that old, has a library of stories, a whole canon of stories that they tell. Some of them tinged with pain, upset, and violence in many ways. Celebration and acknowledgement and the coming together of people, I think. And that's what this 110 years must celebrate. I think that the fact that we are having the first event in this lecture theatre, I thought I would share a couple of my own reflections. In 1986, I came as a medical student to a conference held here by the Medical Students' Council called Healthcare for All. In those days, we dreamed of a healthcare for all. And I sense that even though we dreamed then, we continue to dream of a system which allows access to all people. In fact, in those days, the corner was where the pedestal used to be, and these screens were not there yet. I am talking about it. In the 1990s, while I was a junior doctor, still involved in the Health Workers Association in those days, I heard the name. And I want to acknowledge the name of Francis Ames, because my concern as we celebrate these legacies is the stories of women are attenuated. They continue to form the backdrop, the fabric against which we're able to construct a history that is beyond that question. But when I encountered Francis Ames, it was in the company of them, and I thought those people were really clever, because she was one of 4 people who challenged the South African Medical and Dental Council at that time for their treatment for the Ivor Lang and Tucker, the 2 doctors who had treated Nico so badly in that period before he was transported to Victoria. And what those 4 people said is that it was inappropriate for the professional council of the day not to take these 2 doctors to task, because essentially their assessment of Nico at that time meant that he was transported as a healthy prisoner rather than under serious injuries at that time. So I come into the spirit of ancestry, this place of the stars, recognizing that rich legacy that all of our ancestors have brought into this space. But I come really mindful that it's not an accident that the first event of our 110-year celebration should be this event, which recognizes 3 women who have won on behalf of the faculty the research leadership program. We were asked to submit nominations. We had to make a short list of 3 because only 2 would be awarded from each faculty. So we're the only faculty at the moment who has 3 awards, because in fact these 3 women are outstanding in their own right. And intentionally we drew our applications, our nominations from the clinical medicine space, from the health and rehab space, and from the basic science space. So all of these are intentions, because in the construction of those nominees and in the construction of tonight, we want to tell a story in this 110th year, whatever remains of it. We want to tell a story that acknowledges that many stories have been subdued. And so I really want to thank you guys for being a part of that imaging of a story that is completely different. I want to congratulate you on your work. And I really hope that as you speak tonight, we begin to be inspired by a whole new way of looking at journeys of research and prospects for research in the faculty. I want to thank Dehani as well, who's acting as the Deputy Dean for research at the moment, for taking on one of the few decisions that I think was made within 24 hours on the faculty for a long time. I suggested that you had to do it within 24 hours. She agreed to do that. So thank you very, very much. But I think for me, the 6th of June marks 110 years of this faculty. I'm hoping that by the end of December, when we close this year's celebration, we have heard more stories, more important stories which have not been listened to before. And so tonight is one of those evenings, and I welcome you to this evening to celebrate the evening of listening and sharing the stories I think that will matter in the history of England. I hand over to you, Anecdote.
Thank you very much, Lionel, and I must say, I completely share your enthusiasm for the importance of this event and how wonderful it is that the 110th anniversary celebrations of the faculty are kicking off with something that's recognizing the contribution of women historically and moving into the future within our faculty and indeed within our country and the world. So before we get to the meat of the session, the interesting stories we're going to hear, I just want to give you a very brief overview of the format for today and how it's going to work. The event will run to about 6 o'clock. We've got both a face-to-face audience and we've got people who have dialed in online. So to recognize those of you who are attending online, thank you very much for listening in. We can't see your faces, but we acknowledge you and we're very happy to have you here with us. We have 3 speakers, as Lionel has said, and they will each present for around about 10 minutes their individual stories. And then there will be a facilitated Q&A session, which I'll moderate, with which the 3 speakers will come up onto stage and serve as a sort of informal panel, at which point we're going to invite questions from you to please ask anything you want to ask them about their stories. You can direct your questions to individual members or to all of them as a whole. You can tell us a bit of your own story. If you think it's relevant to this evening, you can make a comment and I'll moderate that. And just to say again, for the people online, please do feel free to put your questions into the chat and I will then read them out to the panel so that they can respond to their questions as well. So this women researchers in our faculty and the contribution that they make, the role they play in our combined future. So it's about research, about people, and about the individuals and the other individuals that they interact with in contributing to making the individual pieces of research within our faculty greater than, into a whole that's greater than the individual discipline. And specifically, as Lionel said, we're hearing from 3 speakers who were awarded the faculty positions in UCT's Research Leadership Program. And this is a program led by the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Internationalization. It's a pilot program, hopefully it will run for 3 years. This first program will run for 12 months. And it's really targeted at advancing women researchers, or advancing researchers in general, but with a focus on women, to become world-renowned scholars, to take on the big challenges of this world, and to lead research into the future. It's quite a diverse program, and it's supposed to complement and dovetail with the other human and research capacity development programs that we do have at ECT and in the faculty. But this one really takes quite a holistic approach to working with the individuals who will be participating from our faculty and the other faculties, develop them intensively over the course of that year. It's got multiple components that look at this aspect of research leadership. So some of it is really management is by looking at networking, looking at research visibility and how you communicate your research to different audiences, looking at for funding large national and international grants to keep the research going sustainably. And then it also narrows in on them and their plan for rating perhaps. It gives them a 180-degree assessment so they can help examine themselves better and see how they are seen and interact with other people. And it helps them with international business to collaborators to help connect their research to other people, as well as bringing in aspects of personal coaching and professional mentoring. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And we're very grateful to UCT Century for making these wonderful awards to researchers from within our faculty. And we certainly look forward to seeing how their journey progresses as they interact with this scheme over the next year. Today, however, the context of telling the many and varied stories of who we all are, we've asked our three speakers to tell us their story. They've all interpreted this probably slightly differently, so we might get three very varying talks, but that's fabulous. They can tell us whatever they want. And if you feel something was missing, please just ask them afterwards and they can fill in the gaps for you. And then also in this context, I wanted to give a very brief personal anecdote. Many, many years ago when I was in high school, and I participated in a debate on the topic, women have no place in history. I was on a girls team of three, a girls team of three who were clearly debating that women did have a place in history, against the boys team of three who were debating that women had no place in history. And one of the arguments we put forward was that history is not just his story, it's also her story, and indeed their story. And the debate took place. I'm mortified to tell you that we lost. It had something to do with the fact that the audience was 95% male, made up mainly of the boarders from the boys' high school at which we were presenting that evening. But nonetheless, we lost. And my big hope is that today, hearing the stories of these fantastic women, they will make up for my failure almost 30 years ago in convincing you that women not only do have a place in history, but that our past is indeed her story, with their very interesting, inspiring, and important stories of where they've come from and where they are going. So I really look forward to listening to that with you. And with that, I'm going to introduce our speakers. I'm not going to go into any detail because essentially they are here to tell you about themselves. But basically, just to sum them up, and I'm going to introduce all three so that once they've come up, they will directly hand over to each other. We have Associate Professor Untitled, who is the head of the Division of Clinical Pharmacology in the Department of Medicine. She also leads the Pharmacogenomics Research Group. We have Dr. Albertus, who is a senior lecturer in the Division of Exercise Science and Sports Medicine in the Department of Human Biology, and also a member of the Health Group Physical Activity, Lifestyle and Sport, or HPALS Research Center. And lastly, we have Professor Roshan Galvan, who is the head of the Department of Rehabilitation Sciences as of a month ago, and is also the co-founder of the Inclusive Practices Africa Research Unit. I've had the pleasure of interacting with all three of these fabulous women for many years now. I think I first met Kumla at a major event we were funded with a governing body of major funders at the Vineyard Hotel, and we knew if we put her in front of them with a research poster, she would well done. I think I met Yumna 2 decades ago, a student at the Sports Science Institute. I met about a decade ago during the faculty's 100th anniversary. The then Dean Marion Jacobs said to me, "This is Roshan, she's fabulous, you need to watch where she goes." So introduce them here today, and I'm really, really looking forward to hearing their journeys with you. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Paula.
Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize, my voice is a little bit croaky, but I'll try my best to project as rapidly as possible. It's a privilege to actually come and share my story, and like Yolanda said, it's my story, so you just have to take what I say as the gospel. What I want to share is my journey from leaving my rural Transkei to come to UCT, and all the way to coming to become the head of division at the prestigious University of Cape Town. And it looks like a linear graph, but it actually isn't. And I want to focus mostly on my PhD journey, which is where I actually think I got my research bug, so to speak. And it really started when I was about to complete my MMed, and we didn't actually have any consultant posts waiting after I had finished specializing. and my mentor, Professor Gary Martins, we actually spoke about what the plan was after the MA was done, and to actually continue working at UCT, the plan was, why don't you just do a PhD? I was like, okay, PhD. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish that. So I actually wanted to, instead of, he had suggested initially to convert my MA to a PhD instead of doing a master's first. So like, I gotta finish the MA, at least I have something in my back pocket before I embark on the journey of a PhD. But it was actually one of the most challenging, most amazing journeys I ever took. And I always tell anyone who is struggling with their PhDs that if I can do it, anybody can. And I believe that wholeheartedly. But one of the most incredible people that I met during my PhD journey was my co-supervisor, David Haas from Vanderbilt University. We actually met when they had a conference in Cape Town, the IIS conference in 2009. And during the lunchtime, we were like, many people can even go over to Vanderbilt for some time and learn how to do pharmacogenomics. And it was what I thought would be my niche area, because in the department, nobody else was doing that. And so I planned around finishing my MMed, submitted it, and immediately got on to starting the PhD without taking so much of a break. But I was promised that I was going to a spring semester in Nashville, and lo and behold, on my first day, it was snowing. I had to buy new appropriate shoes for walking around in the snow. But it was 6 months where I actually learned how to do genotyping. I learned how to analyze genetic data, and that's how my journey started as for myself, pharmacogenomics researcher. But it was a huge difference from when I first started in Nashville, knowing just the course supervisor, to actually leaving at the end of 6 months, having made friends, having made connections, and people that I still collaborate with today. But like I said, my journey through a PhD was exciting. Now actually went with my samples to Nashville, and I did the genotyping myself, came back, actually started working on finishing my PhD in 20, and I thought, 2012, 2013, PhD would be done. And because we had planned to do PhD by publication, in 2012, I managed to actually have at least 2 publications, and I was on track to finish my PhD in 2013. But then I took what I call an academic detour, and it was an opportunity that just came. Do you want to go to Novartis for an internship? I'm like, sure, I've actually never been to London before, and I would love to learn how to do more of clinical trials, because this was the opportunity about how to actually do clinical trials, and that was an opportunity that was missing during my registrar training. So I thought, this is an excellent opportunity. And again, being from State Street, I wanted to go see the snow, and that was part of the sightseeing. But it was a 3-month internship program where we actually got to graduate at the end of 3 months. And here I'm with the mentor and another fellow intern, next generation scientist intern, who was a rheumatologist. We're both trying to learn. And the aim of this program was basically to upskill researchers from low to middle income countries about how to do clinical research. And still, I thought 2013, this was 2013, I'm going to finish my PhD. But what was happening with UCT at the time, it was when it coincided with when the discovery of MMBO48 compound, which was discovered by Professor Kelly Chibale in up campus, and it was time for them to move into the clinic. And I was like, why did you apply for this position? And I still thought, I will apply and you will be the lead investigator for this clinical trial, which was the first first-in-man trial for the new antimalarial that was developed by African-led research collaboration. So I was proud to be part of it, but I actually couldn't manage to do PhD, which was based on pharmacogenomics of HIV and the new antimalarial compound. It just didn't work to actually combine those two together because the work was demanding and at night writing a PhD was just not possible. So I didn't achieve my dream of completing my PhD in 2013. But when clinical trial was done, I went back now to the department as a senior lecturer, and I tried to tread on trying to finish the PhD. And my last two papers were then published in 2015. And at the time, I think I was wanting some kind of change. I've been at UCT since 2006 when I started specializing, and there was an opportunity again. I wanted to apply for another fellowship for learning how to do more of this exploratory drug development. I was like, why not? So I got an opportunity to be seconded to GlaxoSmithKline, GSK in London for a year as part of the WHO TDR Career Development Fellowship. It does look like I did more than sightseeing when I was there. I attended some conferences, alumni conferences. I actually got to attend a malaria conference, and just to put it in context, the group I was with was led by Justin Green, medical monitor, who was looking after tafenoquine, which is an anti-malarial drug. It was actually registered by the FDA in 2018 as a new drug for preventing relapse in pulmonary virus malaria. So I did more than just sightseeing in London. I learned some more of how the industry works. And one of the highlights in 2016, other than meeting some other South Africans that came to visit London, was attending the UCT alumni meeting where Professor Mayosi was talking about his vision for the department. So I remember posting on Facebook, everyone, say now, please be coming back after our short fellowship in London, and I'm sure you can recognize some of the people in the picture. Before I knew it, Brexit happened, Trump won, and it was time for me to come back home. And that was me, people who were, they organized a floor dinner. But what was good about 2016 is that I was actually awarded my PhD, but I was awarded that in absentia, and I couldn't come to graduate in June. And I brought my whole family in 2017 to come and celebrate with me for the ceremony. So it was one of the highlights of my career at the time, actually finally getting that PhD or that background that I'd yearned for a long time. But 2017, another thing that also was instrumental in my journey was actually joining the Next Generation Professoriate Program. And apart from other benefits, like learning how, actually knowing about the ad process, they also have the organized writing retreats where most of the writing of some of my papers have been facilitated. So I was able to then apply for the ad process promotion to associate professorship in 2019. And then now 2019 is a very good year because I became a mother, and to this cute little girl named Mishali, which means joy or Maya. Other than the associate professorship, this was one of the highlights. But then this doesn't happen in a vacuum. I've collaborated with a lot of people locally, but David Haas has been a collaborator in the US. We now co-supervise some of the students together, and some of them have actually had the opportunity to also go to Vanderbilt. I warned them it's very cold in January, so be prepared. Spring semester is not really a spring semester. And some of the students have actually completed their master's degrees in the economics program, and they will be graduating. I think 4 of them completed this year. But we collaborate with a lot of other people nationally as well as within the faculty. And the latest of the highlights is that I recently got rated as a C2 scientist. And now I'm looking forward to, like you understand, to being an internationally recognized researcher. And I think I'll leave the rest to the questions. Thank you for listening. I will now hand over to Yumna to tell her story.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to be standing here. Such an amazing group of women that I'm so proud of. I'm so happy to be part of this. And so I have this opportunity to share my journey. And in this picture, you can see the road is not even. It has its ups and it has its downs, and that's exactly what I've gone through. And from my postdoc, after having 2 children, I found myself a solo researcher trying to find my niche. I knew that what my passion was, which was neuromuscular physiology. And where do I go with it? And through my solo journey, I just knew that I needed to add more people to my journey. And so, first part of my journey, I added 1 person. Now where I am right now, I've just got this massive group of people. And after each project, I always go back to my solo and think about what I've accomplished and where I want to go. And then I go back to my journey with my team again. And in that, I found that with my solitude, really no serious work is possible, because that really established my path that I want to move forward with. And that's a quote from Pablo Picasso. And so, for those who don't know what electromyography is, basically understanding and measuring muscle activity, just looking at the electrical signals that muscles evolve using the electrodes on the surface of the skin. And through my PhD and my postdoc, the more I learned about this technique, the more I realized how much I didn't know. And the more I was delving into more engineering journals, which had massive coding and algorithms, which was over my head. And so my postdoc, I went to Scotland to the University of Stirling. And there I was talking to a biomedical engineer. And I was saying, I really need an engineer to work with me. And he said, but you've got an engineer at UCT that does electrophysiology. And I was like, nobody. And it was Dr. John was actually a biomedical engineer, which is in my department. And I had to go all the way to Stirling to find him. And he was an amazing man. He sadly passed away in 2018, but he really got me into the deeper thinking of electromyography. He did some amazing work that was patented, because he's looking at trying to establish deep muscle EMG signals from just using surface, whereas before you'd have to use needle. And we've got 3 master students out of this research. And so he was my first person that came with me on my journey. And the next phase of my journey was meeting this young man. His name is Brandon Beek. He changed my life. He experienced a spinal cord injury from doing his gymnastics training for Western Province. He was aiming for the South African team. And I, at the time, was undergoing cancer treatment, specifically radiation. And his dad contacted me while I was on leave, and he said, please, why don't you just come in and check Brandon out? I'm going to take him to a rehab center in America, because there's no rehab here in South Africa. Nothing in Cape Town for his outpatient care. And the doctors are saying, because he's got a C5, C6 spinal break, he really has not much hope of using much of his arms or his trunk, and he'll definitely not walk again. And so I said, look here, I can measure his muscle activity. I can tell you if that muscle is on or off, because he can't feel if that muscle is on or off, but I can show you it. And that's exactly what I did. And so I did the muscle activity testing before we left, and then we returned after 12 weeks. And we found amazing improvements in his muscle activity, specifically his trunk muscle, which the doctor said we would never activate. And so Brandon's family established the Walking with Brandon Foundation, and they set out to now provide this outpatient care to everybody, because it was a massive gap here in South Africa. And in that, they found funds to buy this robotic exoskeleton suit, because they wanted Brandon to get this type of access. And so the suit was based at Sports Science at our Biokinetics clinic. And I wanted to look at what was his muscle activity in the suit. How different was it compared to normal rehab? And just having him stand and walk in the suit showed huge differences. Specifically, I don't have a mouth. Oh, I do. This is his upper body. You'll find here his rectus abdominis, which shouldn't be activating, in the suit was activating quite a bit. And then interestingly, his glutes, which is way down below from his area of lesion, as well as his gastrocs were activating in the suit. And that's when, his light bulbs just went off, and I said, we need to study this more. And Mark and I, who's Brandon's dad, said, okay, you will give us access to the suit. We just have to deal with the maintenance cost there, and I can do a study. And that's exactly what I did. Before I get to the study, I just wanted to tell you that Brandon didn't make the gymnastics, but he made the South African Paralympic. And he did the speed, racing at the moment, and aiming for the next Olympics in 2020. And doing so well. And so that's how I came to do the largest randomized control pilot in Africa. Probably the only one that's ever been done using a robot. I knew I needed a massive team. I knew I needed to take the most out of the study, because it's so expensive to conduct clinical trials in this country. And so I found the best of the best. And so my team, I chose a group from Stellenbosch, who had the best disability psychologists in the world, because I wanted to understand what was the mental impact of being in the suit. I had biokinetics, Dr. Sasha West from CPUT, my team from UCT, and then I brought in 2 biokinetics or clinicians to actually work with me on the study. And they were the most hardworking students I've come across, and I'll tell you now. And then Dr. Ed Balberg, who was kind enough to monitor our patients throughout the trial. So we went big. We went for 24 weeks of intervention. That's 6 months. These individuals were 16, randomized into 2 groups. They either were put into activity-based training, or they were in the robotic training group. And the 60 minutes was walking in the suit. With activity-based, they were exposed to resistance training, cardiovascular training, and so forth. And so that's 60 minutes, 3 times a week, for 6 months. And we had to provide transport for each of our individuals to come here. And we had to provide post-trial access for 3 months thereafter. So that's 9 months of session. And the outcome was absolutely amazing. This is someone from the robotic group. One of the many variables that we looked at, besides the mental impact, and besides my area of neuromuscular, trying to understand what the muscular impact was, we also looked at cardiovascular, looked at bone density. And one of the tests we did was just to identify the number of steps they took. And after weeks later, he's able to take One,
Nice. Keep going, boy.
Shall I take the neck off?
Two.
Let it cross paths.
and it just be fun.
That's it.
And that for me was just so amazing. And these are just one of the good, feel-good stories after this. We had individuals coming in with a wheelchair and walking out using crutches. It's been absolutely amazing. And then I wanted to just highlight the lived experience of our participants in taking part in this rehab program. We found that exercising in a large multidisciplinary setting involving other people with disabilities, as well as able-bodied gym members and even athletes and sports teams, seemed to impact how the participants viewed themselves and emerge as a significant facilitator to improve motivation among the participants in the study. With understanding in the Sports Science Institute, every day there's influx of different types of people. We've got elite athletes to your normal runner down the road. Just such a lovely environment, and these individuals felt included in that environment. One of the quotes, I'll just go quickly, patient 6 says, "It's been brilliant, absolutely. I find this place to come inside here and it's just so inspiring. I don't know why, I don't know. I was just saying to the gym, it's not really different than any Virgin Active, but there is just something about it that's inspiring. Coming down and seeing athletes and rugby players and kids training here, it's brilliant. I love it." And so we managed to produce quite a few papers after this study, but with much challenges. I struggled to get our research published because in Global North, having 16 individuals in a randomized control trial is just not good enough. They use multi-center design studies. We don't have those facilities yet to do that. And I got extremely frustrated. I even spoke to Rashad in my meeting about it. And so, but we hit gold, and we hit the #1 rehab journal in the world, published last year. And from there, it just has been going really well, and I've got new at the moment. But what this did was, it made me realize I need to make a difference. I need to stop using what our global researchers are doing and rather do what's needed for our population. Because part of the study was also looking at the feasibility of using a 2.5 living rand suit. And it's not feasible in our country, although the effects are quite beneficial, but it's not feasible. And I knew that if I showed good effects, I would get our engineers here at UCT to just design a suit at a low cost, because I know we can do it. But we needed to really design something for our people. And so I established the South African Spinal Rehab Innovation Network with my partner, Dr. Nick Pujari from the UK. And we applied for Global Challenges Research Fund, which was successful because we brought up on partnerships from Botswana, Zimbabwe, Tanzania. And our goal is to understand the needs of individuals with spinal cord injury in our country. Then, once we've done that and we've established the conditions in which these individuals are being rehabbed in, we're going to have work with the UCT D School in designing a device for the need of these individuals. And that's happening in the next year. But that's extremely exciting, and that's why I need to be part of this leadership program to help me navigate this massive team. In another one, as I was doing this study, Roxy Davis came to me in 2019, and she's the nine-time South African surf champion. And she formed the Roxy Davis Foundation, where they give surf therapy for children with disability. And she was really interested in understanding what the actual effects were on these children. Because she sees the effects, but she wanted to quantify, and she wanted to produce research to help with even policy making and just getting this to progress in this country and worldwide. And so we set about, and then I brought on another member onto my hiking team, Professor Teresa De Lenzos from Disability Science, absolute gem of the research, and she has just helped the study move forward. We currently, Roxy went for a master's. She's just upgraded to a PhD because the data is so rich for the study. The stories that's coming out of here is just absolutely inspirational. And part of a PhD is not just understanding the impact on these children, but also what is the ripple effect on their caregivers, on their parents, on the clinicians that they see, even their teachers, even the bus driver that will bring them into the program every Saturday. So watch out for that space. And so as I was going through that journey, I still have this deep love for electromyography. And with Dr. Lisa John, when I was working in 2014, he purchased this high density EMG system. And what it does is it just takes, instead of having a bipolar electrode, it just has multiple electrodes and you get this rich information. You can deconstruct this information and identify single motor units, which you could never really do before, besides if you had to be invasive. And so with that, I knew I could use this technique in identifying neuroplasticity, especially in the spinal cord population. And so I got hold of one of the top researchers, Professor Alice Hollebaugh from Slovenia, at a conference, and I built up the courage to ask him to help me. And you know, that's the worst thing about going to conferences and finding people. It's just building up that courage, and such an amazing man. A year later, he was here at UCT helping me set up the device. 6 months later, I was there in Slovenia optimizing the recordings and getting it ready. We didn't have any time for the randomized control trial, but we are working on it moving forward. And I met Professor Kowi Watanabe, and he actually goes to Slovenia every year to analyze his data. And so working with him in 2017, 2018, NRF came out with a grant last year where they had a Japanese collaboration grant, and I just contacted him because I knew he's in the same area as I am. What can we do together? So we applied for this grant and it was successful. So we're going to be looking at the muscle activity in stroke population and the effect of targeted Botox injection in relieving spasticity and how that affects gait and bounce mechanics. And then through Prof. Hollebaugh as well at another conference, I met with Dr. Amit Punjani, and he was busy with vibration equipment, and I said, your equipment will be brilliant for spinal cord injury rehabilitation. And we were talking for 2 years, and then suddenly this Global Challenges grant came up, and I said, let's design something together, and that's how we got that study going. So, you know, it's just amazing how all these people we just meet along the same path. And then what I didn't get onto was my head of biomechanics and the research I've done there. But in this, I met Associate Professor Amit Patel in 2018. He's also part of the next generation professor. And he's looking at cheetahs in helping him design robots. And in his idea, trying to understand the maneuverability and the agility of a cheetah, he wanted to look at just what are the forces going through the body of the cheetah, and he asked if he could bring the cheetah to our biomechanics lab. And I said, of course you can. And then my adult brain kicked in and said, like, that's not feasible. We think this would be super awesome. But with Amir and our master student Devin, Amir was, you know, the only way we could actually test the force of a cheetah was to have a force floor, because we only have 2 plates in our lab. Cheetah stride is that big, it's just not going to work. And so he said, well, you know, now build a force plate. I said, you go ahead, because one force plate costs 200 to 300,000 rand. Go ahead, come back to me. And he did it. He built a low-cost force plate, and we are now able to have a force floor at a fraction of the cost of one plate. And that is what's come up with this kind of research. And so this is what we currently have after 3 years of different prototyping. And from this, we've now established the UCD spin-off company called Sina Technologies, which has been amazingly invested in by UCD, looking at including innovative builder and getting pre-seed. We're currently going for the UTFC grant to push these products forward. We've got 2 patents registered from this, and so it's just absolutely amazing. To finish off, you know, you saw that one road with ups and downs. I realized it's just the train station in London when you're looking at that, and it's just everyone's path. My path is crossing just with everybody, but we're all going in the same direction. And so what I've realized is that I'm actually addressing equity and accessibility, as well as the immediate need of vulnerable populations in this country, in Africa, to produce impactful research. And that is what I'm taking forward with me for our future.
Thank you to the GP and the faculty to be part of the panel today. So my research story is one of being off script. I'm not following the script sometimes following the script precisely. And so in preparing for today, I was very stuck by the 10 minutes. How do I fit my story into the 10 minutes, especially because it's over the story that's not on script. So I took the route of being minimalist with my slides. And you'll see that in our tell the story, but I'm hoping that you're going to get a sense of who I am, and that there'll be many more conversations with them. And I also invite you to have Google some of the work that I refer to, because there's lots out there written by myself and my colleagues that speaks about the work that I think can do way more justice to it than I was able to today. So I accepted the invitation to be part of this panel. There's a signal from the Dean to speak freely about my journey, not underestimating the risk that comes with speaking freely, but really just recognizing that my journey has been one that's been located in a context of discovery. And for me, that's meant really starting off from a point I started at about 24 years ago, with coming into the department as a master's student at the time, and thinking about how I didn't agree much of what we were teaching and much of what was in the books we were using. And so I really didn't want my research to be about justifying knowledge, but really seeing it as an opportunity to use the privilege that I had of being a knowledge producer, or starting out being a knowledge producer, to really indulge in the questions that came to me. Questions about the profession of occupational therapy, questions about how we were theorizing in occupational science, and really seeing an opportunity to theorize more around what transdisciplinary practice could be. So that at the outset, I was really driven by my curiosity, and that most of these questions emerged from where I was positioned, because, as I said, coming into the department, that was then the Department of Occupational Therapy, with Ruth Watson as the head of department. So colleagues that's online and some here will remember Ruth for her work in the Division of Occupational Therapy, but also having been the first head of Department of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences when we amalgamated. But at the time for me, coming from working in psychiatry and in acute psychiatry particularly, with women who were domestic workers, I was really just stuck with like the kinds of questions and limitations around our practice in occupational therapy. And so as an academic and someone living in South Africa, I want to know how do we make a difference to the inequality that we were seeing. I wanted to know how we could use the privilege of knowledge production to address the problems of our society. And this meant that my research journey had to be one that was entangled with opportunities that our South African society presented to work towards thinking about what research could contribute in terms of these inequalities. So the idea of being entangled in research is one that stuck with me and that I've learned a whole lot more about through my own work and working with colleagues over time. So, the idea of being entangled, Dimitri Erasmus draws on the work of Tim Ingle when she thinks about this notion of entanglement and meshwork. And she says, nothing can hold on unless it puts out a line, and unless that line can tangle with others. When everything tangles with everything else, the result is what I call a meshwork. To describe the meshwork, to start from the premise that every living being is a line, or better, a bundle of lines, or a knot. And so in my research, I've benefited from meshwork, from finding myself entangled in the work and crossing paths with people pursuing research related to mine, being asked difficult questions about my work, listening to and reading about the work of others, including students, and thinking through the different ways of theorizing. I've also had the privilege of being in the company of many mentors, as I mentioned, Professor Watson, Professor Debbie Emerson, Professor Leslie Landon, who's really in the different interactions in the faculty has helped me to think about how we position our research, how we might actually extend our research. And then, of course, there's also been the grants. And initially, applying for any and every grant that I could was really my strategy. And over time, I found, that I managed to get some grants through the NRS, but that the area that I worked in wasn't one that was particularly attractive to the grant. And so I learned to actually embrace that being off script and not getting the grant sometimes means that you're still on the right path. And so that's been kind of anchor for me as I continue. And then the other part was, of course, as you know, also mentioned, getting the publications out there when your work is recognized. And actually, my strategy, I recognized that, publishing in journals wasn't a strategy for me at the start. And that actually my first experience of publication was a collective publication that we wrote as the Occupational Therapy Division that was called Transformation Through Occupation. And we all got together, identified what chapters we could write, and then started writing them. And we were just writing. Often people say, how did you know you could write? How did you think about it? We were writing the work about the work we were doing. And that book actually, became an international reference internationally. At conferences, it's often referred to people who, and the lesson for me was that we were writing about what we knew and what we thought needed to be said. Not to the audience out there, but actually to our own students and for our own scholarship. So the meshwork, that I've been a part of really helped me to grow my research incrementally rather than racing to an imaginary finish line. So sometimes I still have to remind myself that that imaginary finish line doesn't exist. And as you go on in your career, when I've gone on in my career and become a full professor, it's been a time that I've actually had to remind myself of that more and more. Because the pace, or you look around and you think about what to do next, and actually that would say, just incremental as being what helps me to feel that the research can be something that I love, that's not being part of the race, but instead that I've been doing research that needs to be done in a way that honors the work and the people that I work with, research, and in the communities we work with. The idea of meshwork shifts for me the focus from building what might be researcher-centered networks to foregrounding the multiple collaborations and the actual intentions behind the work. Like my experience of building this work, as I said, has been actually to work with people who have been attracted to the kind of work, the kind of critical dialogue that my scholarship brings, rather than seeking out particular people. And it was only lately in my career that I realized that some of the people that I had been speaking to early in my career were actually rock stars in occupational therapy and occupational science. And I was just speaking to them about, what I thought needed to be done and planning my views. And in retrospect, you actually know that person. It's like, yeah, okay, that's actually something, that people wait before they have those conversations or engage in those networks. But I think the generosity of scholars to actually want to engage and want to have those, really kind of on the ground conversation is what I experienced as really encouraging me to continue to have those conversations and not to be intimidated by the rock star status that tends to get about it. So my research interest, to say a little bit about that, focused on people and contexts that marginalize participation in everyday life. And I'm really interested in how we can promote social justice and well-being through the work that we do. So my work asks of me to continue to ask myself difficult questions, to continue to stretch myself in the work that I do, and to keep thinking about how my work can be more relevant to the public that we want to serve. So together with colleagues, we've theorized human occupation, which is the area of work, what we refer to our area of scholarship at, and we draw on the work and the experiences of various marginalized groups to inform this work. So as I said, we've done work with living domestic workers, with adolescents, and then people with psychosocial disabilities across the state. Our work has mainly been in low socioeconomic settings and with low and middle income countries. And what's been interesting has been how this work has resonated with colleagues in other countries and how, kind of some of the international recognition for this work has energized colleagues across different networks to keep doing the work on the margins because there's been a critical mass that's been developed slowly over time. The other interesting and I guess surprising thing, because it's not what we set out to do, what I set out to do, and I think the team that I work with as well, has been the relevance of this work for high income countries. And I think what's happened over the last few years is as high income countries have started to open their eyes to what's happening on their own doorstep, the relevance of this work has become so much more. And so, the interest in international collaborations and using this work has grown with time. Of course, I've been doing all of this work while I've also raised a family. And so I have 3 kids, and every time I think about, when I did my PhD and my master's, I have to think about my children's ages and what was happening when. Each NRF grants linked to some before or after some maternity leave, writing particular chapters. And so this is what being a woman academic has been for me and continues to be some of the challenges that I face as my children are still growing up. And I was told to not share the advice that they gave me for today's talk, but let me just say that, keeping my research in perspective, my family has really helped me to keep my research in perspective and keep my feet firmly on the ground in terms of how important this work is and how much this work means, because it helps them to think about the world at the same time. It helped me to stop, to recognize the limitations of my own work, the limitations of my own capacities, and to also hold that lightly and being open to grow in different ways. So the critiques on my talks often come from my family members. Whenever I think that I've really achieved something, there's a little bit of a reality check that goes with it in terms of weird pieces, maybe on social media or my lack of study around that. And that's really, just helped me to keep thinking about this issue of relevance. Not just, in terms of my family life, but just in terms of this is how my own family thinks about it and sees what the rest of the people who might not be attending academic conferences or even joining on. So while I've achieved some personal milestones and international recognition with the CY United rating, I think that my efforts to build a research program has really, for me, the significance of it has really been seeing colleagues and others being able to take this work and take this area of work thinking about critical perspectives of human occupation, thinking about community development in relation to health and rehabilitation sciences, and to make those research areas their own and to grow in ways that I continue to learn from. I've done a lot of this work with, as I said, smaller grants, and I think the time is now for me to try and get more funding and the right kind of funding for this research, because I think the challenge that I'm facing is that our work is unrecognized and it doesn't deserve to be like that. So my current project focuses on interventions that support university students and looks at particularly at students with mental health problems, and look at how we can better and best support them. And so it's this entanglement that currently occupies my mind and is occupying my thinking, in thinking about how we really navigate spaces where student interventions can be more supportive, but also how we attract the right research funding so that we can do an implementation project as well as. So my research really has been one of meshworks in research, thinking about it in different ways, but I've really benefited from each of the lines that I've put out there and the intersections with people I found along the way. Thank you.
So thank you very much, all three of you. It's hearing presentations like these that I think help you realize that reading someone's bio sketch only gives you a very, very shallow view of who they really are. It may look academically impressive, but it doesn't do the reality check, as Rashad said. It doesn't speak to that as a person and go into that depth that a personal story does. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. We are going to open the floor now to questions, both from people online and in person. I'm going to just open up the chat and ask those of you who are online to please put your questions into the chat, and then I can read them to the speakers. Don't be shy. And for those of you in the audience to please put up your hand, and we'll bring the roving mic so that you can ask your questions directly. If I can ask the three speakers to please step up onto the stage, and then you can interact more face to face with what is in the room. While people are thinking about their questions, I just wanted to kick off with a broad question to all three of you, asking, is there anything you would have done differently at the start of your research journey, knowing what you know now?
I'll start. I think earlier on, when I was naive, I guess, I thought that your work will speak for itself and you don't need to be worried about getting recognition because the work should speak for itself. And I remember at some point, one of the collaborators that I worked with in the research channel, it was a student who was doing another master's and they'd written an article. And they're like, Kumla, you must comment. I was like, oh, I don't have a lot of contribution. You can just take my name out of it. If I'd known that, I know, if I'd known how important every publication was, I would not have done. But also, another thing that I know now, how important it is to budget properly for research. And I also made a mistake when I had applied for my PhD scholarships. I actually under-budgeted for how much it's going to cost to live in the US for 6 months. So at the end of 6 months, I've already devoured what I was supposed to come and live on when I come back from the US after 6 months. So it's important to budget properly and stick to your budget.
I guess it's recognizing that I will present it at many international conferences early in my career. Because I was part of a group that was starting to go to these international conferences, and I just went along and kept presenting. And I also didn't realize what that meant, because it gave me visibility where I wasn't even looking for visibility. And I think the advice I would give with myself, younger self, would be to take those opportunities again, but I think to recognize actually the magnitude of what the weight of what it actually is.
Interesting that you talked about that, because the same thing for me. I think, as researchers in South Africa and being a first-class student, you don't realize how good our research is here in South Africa. And it's only when you go to these international conferences you realize, but gee, this is a bit crappy. Big supervisor. In my PhD, my postdoc, when I went to those, you just have this hesitancy of I don't know, just being confident in yourself and in your research. And so, it's this mindset, changing the mindset that we are the best. And we are up there. And it's so interesting, like I was telling my son, oh, I've got a Bangladeshi cricketer coming to the lab, we're going to do some testing on his bowling biomechanics. And my son looked at me, he's 13 years old, and he said, but why to your lab? Surely you would be going to somewhere in England or Australia. I stopped the car and I said, excuse me? What makes you think that my lab isn't as good and even better than those that's in Australia and in the UK? What makes you think at your young age that we are not good enough and we're not better? And I hope I clicked something in his head. And as I was talking to him, I was actually talking to my younger self as well when I said that.
Yeah, well said. So we've got a question here from Rani to Puna, who's interested to know, except for your supervisors who motivated you to do a PhD, who is or was your role model growing up, and who did you look up to as a girl growing up in the rural sky?
That's a good question, because obviously, actually, initially the PhD wasn't in any of my dreams. I knew I didn't. I did well in school, so my grandmother and my mother were very encouraging. My grandmother wasn't allowed to finish schooling because the father didn't believe in educating a girl because he thought it would be a waste. So she had to drop out after standard. I think it was standard 4. So she really was passionate about making sure that we get education. So when I came to UCT, I also still thought, I'm just gonna go and become a GP afterwards, because that's all I knew. That's all you see in text space. So growing up, I was motivated mostly by the teachers. There was no pressure at home to become a doctor. It was the teachers who said, oh, you're so clever, you must become a doctor. But I hope it answers your question, Alex.
Thank you, Puna. There's a question here to all of you. An anonymous listener has said what a wonderful and inspirational article it is. Thanking you for this. And ask that often as women researchers, we are asked questions about tips and advice we can give other women. And what are the major lessons that you would like to pass on to your male colleagues about your journey to elevate research generally and to improve the culture of research specifically? And actually, that's not anonymous, it's from me also. So what messages do you have for your male colleagues?
Yeah, I just think that research is to acknowledge that research is a very masculine environment as a start, and to see that actually different ways of doing research isn't lesser than.
I have no idea. I can't say, I can never say I was nearly intimidated by my male researchers, my male colleagues. But what I have noticed is that they're unapologetic for what they do, how they do it. Whereas we as females always try to put someone else first. What's better for the whole. And so I would like our male researchers to also start thinking that way. And yeah.
I don't think I have much to add to that, but what I think I can say as a woman researcher, I usually have to bring all of me to work, including the things that our people I have to take care of. So I would like the male colleagues to recognize that if they have supporting partner at home, we as women researchers, we are those supporting partners in addition to coming to work and having research.
I guess one more thing to add here about the next question, which is about the voice class. I also wonder to what, it's maybe reflection rather than an answer, is to what extent all men feel that way, and to how we can open up this conversation beyond the binary of this is how women think, this is how men think. Because I think that the way that for the culture around research can be suffocating for everyone, and that a more feminized way of thinking about research, about caring for each other, more collective ways of being, specifically, could actually open up space for everyone to do differently. And so I think that getting caught in the binary of this is how it is for women and men is perhaps part of what we have to unpick.
Yeah, and that speaks to the aspects that are being discussed about, acknowledging contribution rather than attribution. Because research is seen as so competitive, it's about what you contribute to it rather than simply trying to claim the reward for having been one person who's achieved something and recognizing that you're part of that whole. So that does then link, Roshan, into the next question that you can see on the list, which is the question of what the biggest challenges have been that you faced in academia as women over the years and how you overcame those, particularly in this case, penetrating, for example, all boys does. But in general, more generally, what would you say some of the biggest challenges have been and how did you overcome them? Gosh, just how long do you think? On a personal level, having to bring up two kids, being a present mom, in academia, I've always wanted my kids to have the privilege of having their mom at home. And so being at home in the afternoon with my kids has affected my career, but that's what I've chosen to do. Now that they're bigger, I can maneuver a bit better, but they are still my focus. Other massive challenges is ethics. Our ethics is, it took a year and 3 months to get the spinal cord study approved, ethically approved. In that time, so much could have been done, so much could have happened. However, sitting with Mark and Teresa Burgess was the best thing I could have done in trying to understand where they're coming from and listening to them. So they had many hesitations, which I didn't understand, because for me, I'm all about positivity and I can do this. And they just like, but you're busy with a vulnerable population. Be careful. Think about their mindset. And so I took a lot of that to heart, and having their feedback really ensured that that study was ethically sound and that I was protecting those patients 100%. And so I've learned a lot through that and working now forward with vulnerable populations. But ethics is always going to be
our previous challenge. I think for me, biggest challenge is trying to manage time now that I'm a single mom. And I don't want it to come off as an excuse, because I feel that the time I spend with Maya is not time long, but it's an opportunity for us when I could be writing something. So I do recognize that I I feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but I'm still not willing to spend less time playing slides or toys in the evening when I get home. The other challenge I found is making sure that you have money to do the research that you want to do. So it's important to try and, I suppose, they fit into each other. If you don't have more publications to show that you can actually complete it, you're going to have challenge with showing your track record and therefore attracting more funding. And so I think that was the to wear it, and even if it's a slower pace than someone next door, as long as you're consistent, that's what I'm.
Very interesting. Sorry for just crashing in, and I missed the first presentation. It's insights that you're giving us that are very important. I just want each one of you possibly to comment on, you have been at the UCT in different capacities for some time. What, if you had the power, what would you want changed so that the life of people like you would be better? Thank you.
I may say the same thing. I get recognition that women in academia are caregivers at home, and if that's recognized and supported, then that would be something that would make a difference, and not be not that we are expected to perform this, but just that it should be recognized that women have more than just looking after their families. I'm not saying men don't do anything in their respective homes, but I think women carry the burden of caring.
But I'll just add on to what Ms. shared around the recognition. I think that also recognition for the emotional labor we carry within the workspace. So we do, a lot of the caretaking at work, in the research space and in the everyday life at UCT, and that's not often recognized or rewarded in the systems that we have. And I think for me, doing work that's not part of what would usually be the mainstream work, it's actually for that kind of work to not only be recognized when it comes to us seeing what we do in social responsiveness, when we want to profile how we relate to communities, but actually also then finding ways to invest in that and supporting pathways to open up funding for the kind of research that's on the margin.
For me, the workload, both teaching, administrative, if you course convening, actually being the administrator of your course as well becomes really a lot, because things need to get done and we end up just doing that because it needs to get done. And so that blurred lines between administration and academia, that needs to be made solid. It takes a lot of our time. I'm talking personally. Also the amount of teaching, I was in sabbatical last year,
And I got my passion back for my research. I lost it. I lost it in the workload that I was experiencing over the years. And, you know, that really made me understand what I was going through and how I needed to now try and focus to keep that passion back in what I'm doing, even with all of these other things that's on my plate. It just does become very overwhelming. So I just need that kind of acknowledgement.
Thank you. Let's get out of the way, just touching on the aspect of some of the negative thoughts. There's a question about the fact that successful women often experience negative reactions from others. Being accused of being too ambitious, strategic, calculating, or insincere, and clearly, as the commentator said, the three of your presentations show you are not that way. But what advice or guidance would you offer other women who are dealing with these kind of negative reactions towards successful women, being too ambitious or too calculating?
I guess that the first point for me would be to think about, what the true significance might be, and to be honest about the parts that one might want to change, about how you operating, how you conducting yourself. And the second is to find people who you can trust, who can give you honest feedback. So that even if it is that, that perhaps some of what you do is warranted, you can still feel how in time to change it. And for where it's not true, to not give it more power than it needs to have, and rather focus on the parts that show that that's not what you're doing, and people will come around.
I don't think there's anything wrong with being ambitious at all. So I would say if you're ambitious, I think I'm sure it's easier said than done. Ignore the negative comments and focus on your goals. If you're ambitious, there's really nothing wrong with being ambitious at all. See that as a negative.
I was thinking about the being calculated, being sincere.
What I'm saying is, it's not about being ambitious. It's not
I agree with you. I was just.
yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say Mogodo, first of all. Yes. You really are inspiration, all of you. And what is amazing about you sharing your stories is that we get to understand what consumes you and what is it that drives you. But for me, what has been important about today is that I think I've found a collaborator, because you never know who is working in your space and who is probably doing the same work that you have an interest in. So I think that is, that's lovely. And I hope a lot more people will see this presentation, because honestly, it should be something that is shared with students who are aspirants, researchers, and this, that, and the other. I take different things from all of you. I've done a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I was a single parent. So I just want you to speak to this tricky balancing act. I'm saying this because in some other meeting I was told that I should, when I'm applying for funding, the motivation that I should use was that I was, I had to take some time out. The reason why I came late into the space is because I was raising a child. So I said, no, that is not true. My child was on my lap with a laptop. And then as I said that, I discovered, not so long ago, that for men that is actually problematic putting a laptop, because it leads to impotence. So, Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to speak then to the writing process because that takes time. It leads to this solitude, that you both, I think that is both to. And also share tips about that writing because I mean, if you're writing a scientific paper versus if your approach is from social sciences, the one expects you to bring yourself, into your writing. The other is you just have to present the results. So can you just speak, to that, please?
So for me, being part of the next generation professorial group, we are just spoiled with going away and writing retreats, and I take those retreats seriously because that's the only time I actually escape from my academic reality of students teaching all of those things, and just getting 2 days straight of just focusing on the work helps so much with me. Also, when it comes to results, I work well with my team in that we map everything out on a board. We'll book a room out and we just dash it as a team, trying to see what results are most meaningful, how to present those results better, what other steps could be done. And so when it comes to the results section, working as a team I think is a good approach, and taking the time out as a team to do that helps a lot, especially with your students. That's where they learn a lot about how to see things, how to interpret better.
So I guess, this part of putting yourself into the writing. For me, with publications that lead that, it's been working out what part of myself I have to work out for that paper, and not doing too much of the work around positionality and reflexivity for a particular paper because it's ongoing work, right? And sometimes if one that is doing that work, it can sabotage you actually. People will slow down finishing the paper because the work of reflecting and thinking through that becomes so complex that the writing can be stifled. I try to I suppose compartmentalize or boundary what is for the paper and what is the work in terms of my research identity. And the other part has been working with colleagues. We've got a writers club where we have a set evening that we meet, we log on, we say, and it's usually after everyone's kids have gone to bed and all the chores are done. We log on, we say, I'm working on this and make a commitment, and then we go off and write for 2 or 3 hours and then log on at the end of the evening. Sometimes it ends up not logging on. We don't log on at the end of the evening. Sometimes we end up talking about our research for a lot of that time. But it's just the time to also connect with others who it's also sitting with wanting to actually go and sleep, but they have to write and not making the research journey as long.
I want to first acknowledge that I still find writing challenging. So what has helped me before is starting with the easy parts of writing. So you already have the methods of your section, you wrote it in your protocol. So you start that and you already, if you've already analyzed the results, then you have the results, then start making tables. Things that don't actually require a lot of thinking when you're writing the work. But I struggled a lot with the writing of my PhD papers up front. And then now what has helped is getting students to do the writing and then editing their work. So that's I suppose part of growing as an academic to supervise students that are writing. But the advice I would be just sit down and start writing. You may spend 2 hours and write and then end up editing it and being left with the paragraph after 2 hours. As long as you're being consistent about it, that's what will progress. Other than there are people that probably can sit and write a paper within a short period of time, but I'm not one of those people. I tend to actually spend a lot of time in writing and editing. And I think that's probably been the great skill in my perspective so far. But it is challenging. So I get this writing class, something that I might want to pick up as well.
Thank you. And I'm aware we are past 6 o'clock, so we're over time. What I'm going to do is just read you one final question that's been sitting here for a little while, and if you could just give a very quick answer. There are also a couple of additional comments in the chat, which I encourage you to read, and there's a question at the end, which would be fabulous if the three of you have the opportunity to respond to that individual later. That would be lovely if you could. But the one that's just been sitting for a while that we're just going to close off on is, what would you advise me to undergrads and postgrads who are hesitant about actually entering academia or research because of the challenges of diminishing research funding, etc.? Any very short highlights of advice for them, and then I'll hand over to the Dean to close for us.
I know the trouble with sitting in the middle. So, I guess, in everything we do, there are challenges. But if we allow those challenges to stop us, then nothing will get done. So I want to go back to that line, that Tim Ingold and that Dimitri Erasmus talked about, is that every meshwork starts with putting a line out there. And so unless you put that line out there as a researcher, as a student, the research, unless you put that line out there, you don't know what funding, what opportunities will come. And it might just be that you are ahead of the opportunity. So don't let the realities of the current limitations be your limitation.
And you create your own reality, your own path. So if you just think it's not going to work, it's not going to work. You just have to go all kind of space and just eat it on. And things will open up, doors will open up, doors will close. You just go through another one. And that's academia. If you're not up for that kind of environment, then yeah, maybe. But I think in anything that you do, it's going to be that way. As you grow through life, your whole development and growth is all about taking those opportunities, identifying opportunities, and identifying what's not good.
Yeah. My advice would be to start where you are. If you are in a rural place and you don't have funding, say, you can do an audit, for example. I'm thinking about doctors that want to start research. Do an audit that doesn't require any research funding so that you can actually build your portfolio, so that when you do apply for the opportunities that do come, then at least you've got something to show about your research work to that point. But I keep trying. I wouldn't say don't harm. There's enough room for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. And just to say, please do have a look. There is one more question in the chat, which we don't have time for now, but if we get the opportunity to feedback, you can see some of the other lovely comments in the chat. So I'm going to hand back over to the Dean now, but just to say, with your comment about throwing out a line, there's a wonderful quote about fishing that says the wonderful thing about it is that it's a perpetual series of occasions for hope. And in a way, that's what research funding is. If you just keep that hope up, then one day, hopefully, it will come. So thank you very, very much for your stories and for engaging with the audience, both online and in person. And
Thanks very much. Hope that's loud enough. When Ziki said, oh God, I was deeply reminded of the journeys of women. So I want to say this evening again, igama lamakosikazi alibo, in such a deep way for me. I have to say it's been a tough week in the office, but this reminds me why I'm here. I mean, this has been truly one of the best 2 or 3 hours that I've spent at UCT since I've come. By far, it really reflects, because I leave here with the sense that I have drunk deeply from your wells. And for that, I'm deeply grateful. Because even as I started with Frances Ames as being this, she was essentially a clinician who worked across boundaries. Even as you spoke, you broke the boundaries between yourselves, or amongst yourselves, and the boundaries between us and you. Because in many ways tonight, you've shown us that you're both the cutting edge and the subtle edge of who we might become. And I'm deeply grateful for that, because even as I listened tonight, you answered a couple of serious questions for me. How many stories make a legend? How does a CV come alive? How does a history make a promise for a different future? But how does an idea translate into agency? Because in conceptualizing this year of celebration, you've given agency to what stories are. They are about who we are and who we promise to be. And so for me, you've fulfilled so many, many promises tonight, because essentially tonight has been the story of our anniversary. It has been about the struggle and the joy, the binding and the liberation. So thank you very, very much for that. And in my regular words, I say thank you. Thanks, Yolanda, for managing it. But I think to those of you who have come, I'm sorry that there are not more people in the room, but I'm hoping that in the spirit of recordings, maybe more people will listen to. Because my mother-in-law used to always say that it doesn't matter the preparations you do. If the people don't come, you don't have a party. And I really think that the numbers are online are much more than you are here. So I invite you to join us for a few refreshments in the back. Certainly not going to be supper, so I hope you're not starving. Please join us, and thank you very, very much.